Welcome everybody. I'm Justin with SUP Guide, and today we're bringing you another SUP review. And for this review, we have something special. We have the ISLE Pioneer Pro SUP Kayak combo. Now, in this review, we're going to be taking you through all of our normal things, what's included in the bag, how it performs on the water, but we're actually going to be geeking out a little bit more than normal because ISLE really has created something very special here. In our opinion, they have created what we would consider the best SUP kayak combo board on the market today. So there's a lot to go over. Let's dive right in. Okay, so before we dive into the full review, let's go over what ISLE includes when you order the Pioneer Pro series, because it's a little bit different than what they do with their Pioneer 2.0 series. You'll notice that it does not come with a paddle, does not come with a pump. They do that so basically you can add on whatever you want. If you already own a Pioneer 2.0 or an Explorer 2.0 or another board, you don't need to order an extra manual pump. You don't need to order a paddle, so you've already got a custom paddle for you. So they are able to keep the price down a little bit with such high quality boards because they don't include everything. But what they do include, I want to point out, first, this really high quality backpack. It is the best ISLE backpack that they have so far. Really quality zippers, nice oversized, so it fits the board really well. Really like how the big plastic rollers, so just make this transport really easily. Inside you also get this neat little dry bag, so you don't have to go buy an extra dry bag. Inside the dry bag you get your fin, which comes with both. It's kind of like a click fin system with these Kumano plugs, so you can just click in and go, or there's a nice screw plate that you can tighten it down if you are worried that you'll lose the fin. Next you get what ISLE calls their super lightweight leash, and it is very lightweight. I can attest to that. It is not coiled like other leashes are, but there is some bungee, so when you attach it to the back of the board, I like to wear this one a little bit higher. Still stays out of the water, but it is very lightweight, very comfortable, and very nice. And so when you look at the base kit that it comes with, again, this is everything that it comes with. If you want to add a paddle, you can. If you want to add a pump, you can. So if it's a first time purchase, add some of those items. If it's a second board, you may or may not need them. So now let's dive into the construction of these boards. And this is where I'm going to geek out a little bit, because what ISLE has created is what they call an inflatable hard board. And there's been a lot of technology that goes into these boards to do that. And it's, you know, at first when they told us about this, I was skeptical, but I can tell you these boards on our bend test, which really tests the quality of the construction, they have outperformed anything we have bend tested up to this point by almost 100%. So last year, our best boards did just under an inch, about, 14 sixteenths, 15 sixteenths of an inch of bend. All of these ISLE Pioneer Pros bent just under half an inch. And so what that does is, just because they are so firm, it gives them more of a hardboard experience on the water, which is super cool. So how did ISLE create that? What did they do? So they're not using aramid cables, they're not using RSS battens, carbon fiber rails. There's a little bit different things that they've done, and I'm going to take you through from the very middle all the way to the outside. So at the core, that drop stitch inner core, instead of using linear drop stitch or V-shaped drop stitch, they have used X-shaped drop stitch. That's all those nylon fibers, people call them space yarns. And the X just makes kind of more of a triangle kind of approach, which the triangle is the strongest form in nature. And it really does two things. Number one, it lightens up the boards because you don't have to use as many drop stitch fibers. Number two, it makes it more firm. Across all our bend tests, those that use a cross pattern do bend less. Number two, to connect all those together, they use a base layer of a woven fabric. Now, woven versus knitted are the two standard are used, and woven, again, is a little bit stronger than the knitted side of things. Putting Around all of that is their layer of fusion PVC. So they use a single layer of fusion PVC. It is thicker, but you don't need glue. So by cutting out the glue, it makes it lighter. And by fusing that, you still have all the durability that you would need. And so they also, again, made it thicker to make it more durable. So you have the drop stitch inner core, you have the single layer fusion PVC, and then on the rails, they've welded the rails. They call them their Powerfusion rail. And so instead of using glue, which again, if it's done properly, can be really well done and can last a long time, but by creating a mechanical bond with their welded rails, they're again able to cut a little bit of weight from the glue and make a rail that is very strong. Again, it's mechanically bonded, and so in theory should last a lot longer. So all those things are super cool, but then what is really game changing, and I will call this industry changing because it really does, I think it is going to change the industry. They've added what they've called their InfinityFiber stringers. Now this is a series of 6 stringers that kind of make like an exoskeleton that go around. You have one on the top of the board, you have one on the bottom of the board that go from about 2/3 of the length across, both on top and bottom, and then on the sides you have one on this top portion and then on the bottom portion as well. And so when you go to roll it up, because it's kind of like this, it collapses and you can roll it. Now, how can you roll it if it's some type of fiber that is supposed to be stiffened and enhance the stiffening of the board? What they've done is how Jimmy Blakeney, their VP of product, described it, is kind of used almost like a snap bracelet technology with this, where when it's under tension and tight, it's very stiff. Like a snap bracelet, when it's straight, it's very stiff, but as soon as you start to roll it up, it gives and rolls up nicely. That's what this does. So it creates those 6 stringers all under tension, just creates that exoskeleton that, you know, when I'm jumping up and down the board, that middle of the board is really not flexing. And so it enhances the performance, enhances the feel of it. The front and the rear still get a little bit of flex, but it actually, and we'll talk more about this on the water, it doesn't take away from the performance, helps absorb the waves. So all in, you have a very rigid, very high quality, well-built board with a lot of cool technology that, again, I do think is going to change the industry. So with the Pioneer Pro Series, you do have 3 different board options, different sizes, depending on what you want. All right, so the smallest is 9'6", then middle 10'6", then 11'6". As you'll notice on the weight capacities, this is more geared towards like a single, more petite rider, all the way up to honestly about as big and tall as you can get, or even like 2 people. So the 9'6" is 30 inches wide, or sorry, 32 inches wide and has a 195-pound weight capacity. The 10'6" is 34 inches wide with a 325-pound weight capacity. And the 11'6" is 36 inches wide with a 450-pound weight capacity. So you can put a lot on this one. And so you'll notice as you look at these, they're definitely more of the all-around type / cruiser type inflatable from a paddleboard standpoint. You have a lot of thickness all the way through the board, especially in the tail. So these are going to be very stable. If you're worried about stability and want to actually stand up and paddle instead of sit down and paddle, or just kayak, then the Pioneer Pro Series we would recommend over the Explorer Series. If you want something more performance and speedy, go with the Explorer. But again, fantastic, stable, all-around cruiser type SUPs. Now, as you can see on these boards, there's a lot of, cool things kind of going along the outsides. The deck pad, though, is very clear and open. I really like their deck pad. It goes from the tail all the way to the nose. So if you want to do yoga, put dogs, you're totally fine. It's a very plush, comfortable deck pad. It does not have diamond grooves or a logo stamp, but it hasn't been slippery to me and is definitely on the comfortable side of things. So I like that. Looking at the board, you also have 3 different carry handles, the front, the middle, and the rear. Just helps you carrying it to and from the lake. You have a big thing that I really like, and what's make these so versatile is the aisle link system. So that is the system of molly loops that run all the way, both sides from the tail, almost all the way up to the nose. And with these bungee system, you can actually remove it and put it wherever you need. So if you're looking to carry a lot of different cargo, coolers, their fishing accessories, whatever you want to do on these boards, you can do because of that ISLE link system. It's a nylon moly loop that is, you know, it's supposed to last with UV rays and seawater in ocean, right? ISLE's close to the ocean, so that's really nice. I prefer that a little more than D-rings because the D-rings can get hot. If you fall on them, they can hurt, especially if your kids fall on them. And it just makes these boards extremely versatile. You'll notice, you know, we've got the kayak seat there. The 11.6, you can actually put 2 kayak seats on here and have a ton of fun as a tandem kayak that's very stable. The 10.6, you can technically get 2 kayaks on. I would recommend, if you want 2, to go with the 11.6. And then the 9.6 is a really fun solo recreational kayak that's just kind of maneuverable and, again, just a ton of fun. And so, again, very versatile, really good performing all around cruiser SUP kayak combo. All right, so now we got to dive into the performance section and see how these boards did in our test. We've already talked about how rigid they are, you know, bending just under ½ an inch in our bend test, and that really does affect everything, right? So right now I'm going to talk about stability. And one thing with stability is if a board just flops around, it doesn't feel great on the water. And that's why one of the reasons why a lot of people prefer a hard board when it comes to performance, because it just has a different feel. This gives you that feel. You know, as you see, so as I jump up and down on the board, you'll notice the center just really doesn't flex much. You get a little flex up at the nose and the tail, but that actually helps the board be a little stable in chop because it absorbs, you know, that chop, that wave just a little bit. Again, not too much to where it feels just kind of floppy, like some of the cheaper boards do. So definitely that rigidity helps the stability. The other side, again, this one's the 11.6, it's 36 inches wide. All throughout all the different Pioneers, you'll notice they're very thick throughout. I'll definitely erred on the side of stability for people. Because let's be honest, if you're not stable, you're not gonna be able to stand up and paddle, right? And so that's where they went with. When I'm going side to side, let me just get adjusted here for you. There's also good stability laterally on these ISLE boards. You know, I can really push quite a bit here. And so if you just relax your knees, keep your head up and look forward, you're not gonna have a hard time standing on these boards. We've tested the 11.6 with 6'5", 240 plus pound paddlers, and they've done fantastic. For me, the 11.6 feels a little bit wide unless I'm really loading this up. And so if you're average paddler size, you might gravitate more towards the 10.6. It's definitely more than stable. And the 9.6, we even found someone that's a little bit past beginner, more intermediate at over 200 pounds and above 6 feet tall to be fine on the 9'6". So again, overall, these are some of the most stable boards that we've ever tested. Okay, so moving on to maneuverability. You'll notice I'm on the 9.6 because this is definitely the most maneuverable out of all the 3 Pioneers. In fact, I was surprised at how maneuverable it was. It's really kind of a nice, fun, sporty board. Like you can see me moving right now even. You know, to turn around entirely in my testing, just using a reverse sweep stroke, you know, it just takes about 3.5 turns to just spin. So if you're wanting a very sporty maneuverable board, this is definitely the most. Again, it's only 32 inches wide. It's 9'6", so it's going to be a lot more maneuverable. And then as you move up from the 9.6 to the 10.6 to the 11.6, you kind of lose some maneuverability in each of those. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like if you're worried about maneuverability and you're looking maybe to like go down a river or something, I'd probably go with the 10.6 board because it is fairly more maneuverable than the 11.6. It took just under 5 strokes to turn that 10.6 board, where on the 11.6 it took about 6 to do that. But that being said, all the boards I would actually say are a step ahead of average when you're looking at something like the step back turn, right? So even on this 9.6, right, super maneuverable board, but I can just easily step back and just turn around, right? And the positioning of that fin and how wide that, you know, the tail of the board is and how the deck pad runs all the way through it. You saw me, I mean, I've got camera equipment on. I'm not really that focused on my step back turn, but it's very easy even on the 9.6. If you're a beginner on that 11.6, it's one of the best boards to start learning how to do that step back turn, which makes almost any SUP board very maneuverable. And so again, good maneuverability on the Pioneer Pro Series, about what we would expect out of a very stable all-around / cruiser SUP. And then from the other side of things is from a kayak standpoint with the maneuverability. You know, we were able to just have a ton of fun. Again, this 9.6 is the most maneuverable. Same thing with, you know, with the kayaks that you get with the SUPs. A little bit less maneuverable as you move forward, but they've just really dialed in the kayak side of things. And so because they're lighter weight, it's easy to really, you know, plant your paddle in and turn it both as a SUP and as a kayak. Next up, we have tracking. And as you've noticed, I've jumped on the 10.6. To be honest, tracking wise, the 10.6 and the 11.6 are very similar. For me, I track best on the 10.6, and that's because it's only, again, those 34 inches wide instead of the 36. So on the 11.6, I just have to reach over a little bit more, a little bit harder to keep my paddle straight, but they're really good. The 9.6 is very sporty. You really do have to be dialed in and focused on your stroke. If you're a heavier paddler, a lighter paddler will have a little easier job, and that's who that board's for. But just in general, from a tracking perspective, all the Pioneer Pros are right about what we would expect from an all-around board that is dedicated a little more towards stability, and they just do a really good job. The rigidity does, I would say, helps with the feel, right? So it kind of, again, it's more of a hardboard type feel. So, and this is getting pretty nuanced, but you know, as I'm paddling on it, it feels a little better. And so it makes it seem like the tracking is even a little bit better with that rigidity. But I'm able to, again, on this one, I paddle probably 6 to 8 strokes on each side before I swap. Very good, does a great job. And if I'm looking to go on like a longer adventure, right? I'd probably pick the Explorer series because you're gonna get more speed, a little bit better tracking. But if you're worried about the stability side, this is still going to do well on the tracking side of things for you. And you're really going to like it. Okay, moving on to speed, which, you know, next to stability is the one that we get the most questions on, right? Like, you want a board that goes fast, that's fun. And I had a lot of questions going into this. You know, Isle has made these boards lightweight, you know, ranging from 20 to 26 pounds, but they're wider and they're really thick through the tail. So how would this perform from a speed standpoint? And what impact would the rigidity have on the speed? Because we do have the 10.6 Pioneer Pro, or sorry, the 10.6 Pioneer 2.0 that we were able to directly compare to this board, the 10.6. And what we found, it kind of surprised us. You know, the 10.6, when I'm comparing to other 10.6, you know, bigger all-around boards, is right in line with the Blackfin X, which is one of the speedier SUPs that the big boards that we've tested. Compared to the Pioneer 2.0, this was about 0.2 of a second faster miles per hour. And I think that's because the rigidity, like, it does just improve the glide. Which is how far you know, and how smooth you go over the water. And because you're also not bouncing around as much, you're able just to go a little bit faster. And so for bigger, again, boards that are dedicated more towards stability, these did really well. The 9.6, as expected, was the slowest. He came in at a top speed of about 4.7 miles per hour. The 10.6 was right around 5.25 for me, and the 11.6 was 5.3. And I think if you're a larger person, you're going to be able to get that 11.6 up a little bit faster than the 10.6. For me, again, this is the board that I would choose. I'm 6 foot tall, 180 pounds, and so it's just kind of perfect for me. But a larger person would do better on that 11.6. If you're a smaller petite paddler, you're probably going to go a little bit faster on the 9.6 or the 10.6. But overall, I think the rigidity helped a lot. The lightweightness helped a lot. And you know, when we're talking about speed, it's not just about the raw numbers. It's kind of about the experience and the feel that you have, and that glide and the feeling that you get with these inflatable hardboards, right? Really do just make them stand out. And that's why we put them in the higher performance category of things. And then, you know, flipping to the other side of the coin with the Kayak, they have, as I mentioned before, they're 6 inches thick. And to be honest, I think they could improve the speed a little bit if they made the boards narrower and thinner. But you would take away some of the performance as a Kayak. And so they've really nailed that middle point where I can put a Kayak seat on here, and I'll let Jimmy kind of go into maybe some of their speed testing as a pro kayaker, right? I'm more of a paddleboard guy. But I was able to get really good speed as a Kayak and just have a ton of fun. And so it's, you know, just a really good balance. With that being said, I'd still probably like to challenge Isle like I did in the Explorer, is to maybe create one dedicated SUP board using this technology, because it would just be killer. They could make this 4.75 inches thick. I think it would still be very rigid, and it would just improve the feel as a SUP even more. But you would take away from the Kayak experience. So for what they've created, that SUP Kayak combo, speed-wise, performance-wise, they just did a fantastic job. All right, so as you can tell, we really do like the Pioneer Pro series from Isle. You know, as I talked about it being game-changing and industry-changing, like it might kind of come off a little bit as hyperbole, but reality, I think that's what we have here. We have a board that is the stiffest board that we've tested, and that's compared to, you know, $2,000+ race boards that we have from Starboard, from Red Paddle Co. There's just a lot that Isle has done here and kept the price down. You know, where you're right around $1,000 for this board, it's very impressive, especially when you layer on the fact that, as you can tell, it's also a Kayak. And the way this Kayak seat and this footrest are, you know, even for someone like me who, again, I mentioned very inflexible, the Kayak's usually not very comfortable, it's just a ton of fun as a Kayak. Like, it really is. I don't know if I'd call it a SUP first or a Kayak first. Like, it's just good at both. And it's impressive because most of the time when you try to throw a Kayak seat on a board, you lose some of the performance as a SUP, or you lose it performance as a recreational Kayak. And Isle has just nailed it. That InfinityFiber, you know, the InfinityFiber rail system that they have is just very impressive. Just gives this the most hardboard-like feeling. And I do think it's warranted to call these inflatable hard SUPs. And I think it's going to be a call out to the industry to see how they can respond. You know, we've seen a lot of improvements in rigidity and construction quality over the last couple of years, to where I was a little bit nervous coming into this season, like what's going to happen. And I think Isle has hit that mark, and they've put out a challenge. And again, I give it 2 thumbs up. And I think if you're someone who wants a Kayak / SUP and, you know, be able to kind of do a little bit of everything with an all-around cruiser, if you're worried about stability, if you're a beginner, if you're a very large paddler, the Pioneer series is the one you're going to want to go with. If you do want a little more speed, a little more performance, the Explorer Pro series is the one that we would recommend. And it really just kind of comes down to you, what you would prefer. Again, the Pioneer Pros are going to have higher weight capacities. You're going to be able to load these things up like crazy using that Isle Link system, fishing gear, coolers, Kayak seats, whatever you want. And really, bottom line why I love it so much is it just gets you out on the water in a way that puts a smile on your face. You, your family, your friends just have a ton of fun. So with all that being said, I hope we covered everything in this review. If you have any other further questions, comments, leave them down below. There'll also be links to our individual reviews of each board on the website where you'll see all our testing, all the photos, everything. So please go to those links. Also, you know, if you do want to support us, we'll have links to the products. So if you're going to decide that this is a board that you would like to buy, please use our links. That's how we get paid. And, you know, feed our family with me and my team. So again, that's how you can help us out. So with SUP Board Guide, I'm Justin. I hope this review was helpful, and I'll see you out on the water.